Studying the Word of God can be difficult. One of the easiest ways to study the Bible is one verse at a time, but at times it can seem overwhelming. Our goal in this podcast is to wrestle with the text and dive in deeper. We pray that this edifies you and empowers you to fall deeper in love with the Bible and Jesus. Welcome to Everyday Theology. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Theology. My name is Guy Parkerson, and I'm here with my good friend John Muth today. How are you?
Good.
Good. Sean Newby, you?
Hey, I'm good.
Hey, did you know we have a special guest today?
Who?
Michael Beavers.
Hey! Surprise!
Didn't see him there, did you?
No, I just thought it was Ian.
Yeah,
But I
no.
noticed it was a lot quieter.
No, Ian wasn't able to make us because we're recording on Thursday. And Michael Beavers stepped up and is taking his place.
Wasn't there like other people that you asked first that couldn't actually be
Like
here?
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were on the top of the list.
Yeah.
But we just asked you last.
I was still on the list. Yeah.
You were on the top of the 6th alternate list.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you joined us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, your insight is really good and warranted because we don't really have much. And I'm going to upgrade you into my best friend. I always have a best friend.
Yeah, I know.
every Sunday.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
You're my best friend today.
All right. I was kind of hoping that was going to happen.
So, were you
So
guys,
mad.
so you guys want to talk about Acts 15 today?
I'd love to.
Okay. Where you want to start?
Let's talk about circumcision.
The Jerusalem Council.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's up with circumcision?
I don't know. Let's cut to the chase.
Oh, that was bad.
You know,
I'll think of some more. Just give me time.
I have a little sympathy for the Judaizers at this point. And maybe it's just because I'm not, I know about the Judaizers. I know that they're going in trying to distort the gospel. But man, put yourself in that place at that time, you know, your whole life, thousands of years of Judaism and tradition and the scriptures that they had, you know, they're trying to be obedient to that. Yeah. And then, you know, this new covenant, it's hard to just not have just an ounce of sympathy for him.
Yeah. Well, think of how God told Peter to go to the Gentiles initially with the dream that he gave, or the vision that he gave Peter of the sheet coming down with the different types of food. And Peter's like, no, I can't eat that. And God's like, eat. And he had to do it 3 times, really. So God had to do something miraculous to get Peter's attention to make sure that Peter knew this is okay. And so it's not like everyone had that experience. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I have a little sympathy for him. It was, I'm sure it was hard.
I don't think much has changed. I mean, unless you really understand Scripture, look at all the different churches just in our little community. How many of them think that you have to do certain things to please God in order to be in His presence?
Well, you grow up, you grow up thinking, being taught something your whole life, and then, you know, maybe realizing at some point or being told that it's not exactly biblical, or it's just, you know, this is a faith tradition and not something that's biblical. I mean, a lot of people really have trouble digesting those things and changing.
Yeah, because that's my thought. You know, if we were to go in and change some major aspect of a service that we have now, regardless of how,
great point.
you know, it would be hard to do because this is not my tradition.
Well,
And we expect those things. This is thousands of years now that, hey, we're just going to reverse this.
Yeah.
let's take communion. I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but let's take communion as an example, because I mean, we could argue that biblically we should take it every Sunday we're together, but I mean, I think there's more faith traditions, there's more denominations that don't take communion every week, but we do. So if we were to come and say, if our leadership were to decide, we're not going to take this every week, we're going to go to, you know, monthly or quarterly, that would be really challenging for people, I think.
And then you
And me.
And then you compound that by they have the scriptures that clearly say, you know, Israel is God's chosen. Okay, well, so they'll get past that, and they're like, okay, the Gentiles can come in. Okay, we get that. But they have to follow the works of the law. it says right here. I mean, they didn't have, Ian made that point. They didn't have any of the New Testament. And so it says that, that they're recounting in detail the conversion of the, they have to be like, you remember all these miracles that God provided as proof that this is what he wants.
Well, I thought it was interesting in verse 5, but some believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees rose up and said, "Is it necessary to circumcise them and order them to keep the law of Moses?" What I thought was interesting that I totally looked past when I read it before Ian preached on it was these were believers. Mm-hmm. And I still see how we fall in the same trap as believers of... Well, Ian said it. I've got it quoted here. They had forgotten that their obedience comes after they had already been saved, not before. So the obedience comes. It's not the marker. It's not the marking of the circumcision that saves you. It's the obedience after you're saved that saves you.
Yeah, faith without works is dead.
There
Works is a result.
Is that Romans 1? He mentioned that.
No, that's
Faith without works. That's
dead.
James.
James. Okay.
But that's saying that the works is a result of the faith. You're going to produce good works after you've been regenerated by God.
Yeah. I see you're open to Romans, guy. I'm open to Romans.
Yeah, because I was gonna talk about the Romans 1:16, which was, I mean, we already got past that, but right there, it was clear. It's clear as day that the power of the gospel is for salvation for everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. And Ian had mentioned that Judaism is the front door to Christians.
Yeah. I was gonna read Romans. I still will. How about I do it?
Go for it.
Romans 3:20. Just as Jews, having the law, having their Old Testament, their Bible, their whole life, to learn that Romans 3:20, because by the works of the law no flesh will be justified in His sight, for through the law comes the knowledge of sin. That God's purpose for the law, all along, His main purpose was to show everyone, hey, you're a sinner.
Yeah.
To help them understand the gospel. It's like it's a necessary component of the gospel. That is the purpose of law. That we still look to. Ian mentioned just the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. He said, "You've all broken at least 7, and the other 3 are debatable."
And I think that was being pretty generous.
Well, and Christ came and even took that up a notch because they all thought that they were keeping the law.
Right. Yeah.
So He says, "No, if you hate your brother, you're guilty of murder."
And then in Romans 2:29, Paul takes some more time. He talks about circumcision in this section here, and he says, "But he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that which is of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the letter, and his praise is not from men, but from God." So God is more concerned with our heart. Circumcision is what set Israel apart from the other nations. And so as God's people today, we should be circumcised in our hearts. We should be separate, his people.
How great is it though in Rome, or in Hebrews 10:1, it reminds us that the law is only a shadow of the good things to come. And then in 4, he reminds us once again, it's impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away the sins.
I'm sure that had to be reiterated over and over and over.
Yep.
Well, so I'll go back. What do you think the purpose of circumcision was? And you kind of alluded to it there to begin with. Why is that such a central theme?
It set them apart.
Yeah, from
everyone else.
Which is, a lot of the laws were that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you weren't supposed to wear or make clothing with 2 different types of threads to be different.
You don't eat a lot of different kinds of food. Yeah.
So you are set apart and you are different than all the nations around you.
Yeah.
So what's this? But there's some symbolism behind circumcision too, right?
Yeah, we just said it.
Well, was that the symbolism we were talking about, or because
you mean being that specific area that's chosen?
Yes.
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Somebody call Ian.
Oh, we could have used phone a friend.
You know what came to mind when he started talking about the Judaizers? So this, I'm assuming, was the first time they come on the scene in Acts. But then Paul talks about them a lot. And in Galatians, he says, starting in 1 really, but even if we or an angel from heaven should proclaim to you a gospel contrary to the gospel we have proclaimed to you, let him be accursed. I know that the Judaizers followed him around. You know, Paul would go in and start a church, and the Judaizers would follow him in and be like, yep, this is great. Christ is awesome, but you have to do this and this. It was just from the beginning, it was a constant fight. People trying to twist the gospel, and that makes it not a gospel at all. Distorting it. So I was thinking about that.
I just found this in remember this. It's in Genesis 17 when God first instructs Abraham to be circumcised, his whole household. I'm just thinking about doing that as an adult. Ugh, if not without modern medicine.
Come here, Dad.
But it's a sign of the covenant. It was a sign that God's covenant to Abraham and to his people, that I'm going to multiply you. I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to bless all the nations through you. I'm going to give you this land to possess. Circumcision was a sign that it's like a seal on the covenant. So in that way, it was symbolic.
And it's something people aren't going to probably try to mimic because it's cool, back then.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I don't know. I mean, we still do that today.
we do that for health reasons, but back then, I don't know. They probably weren't that concerned with cleanliness.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were. I don't know. I'm completely speculating here, but I would just think like, a pagan would be like, "No, you can keep that."
Well, especially because how many other people would even know?
Yeah.
It's not like when we do good works now, we do it because people can see us and we look like we're holy.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That you would not see. That would be something kind of personal, I would think.
No, that's a really good
That
point.
is a good point.
I had never thought
What's the
about
next
that.
topic?
Well,
We're not done talking about circumcision yet. We got like an hour of this.
the next topic I actually did have is that they had forgotten that their obedience comes after they had already been saved, not before. And I got to thinking about that was, how do we legislate morality in a world that doesn't necessarily think like the way that we think? I, for example, thought of abortion. Like how can we expect the outside world not to want to kill their babies and act like Christians when they're not? So how do we legislate that, or can we legislate that?
Every law is a legislation on a moral principle, whether it be lying or stealing. And we all know that those things are right. We all know that it's wrong to kill. So when you talk about abortion, so we're only legislating things, to use that term, that we already know are right, but we have a tendency to want to do. But if you look back to the Old Testament, well, even, what happened with Noah, everybody got wiped out. Why? Because the world had become so evil that think of the horror that would be, or if you read about, what happened with Lot, and I don't think, but just the horror that it would be if we didn't have laws trying to legislate morality. So anybody could go around and kill anybody.
They did, because in Kings where he says everyone did what was right in their own mind.
That's Judges.
Is that Judges?
Yeah, everyone just did what was right in his own eyes.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should expect it. I mean, we can't expect spiritually dead people to acknowledge a holy God, right?
So yeah, I think you can both fight for what you think is right, and you can stand up for absolute truth.
Okay.
But also you need to maybe temper your expectations and have, some compassion.
Sure. Okay. So that got
Patience.
me, which I hadn't no idea. I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm kind of curious on. So let's say the political field eventually gets to a point where everyone thinks that abortion is right, and as Christians, we obviously don't. So I'll use I'll use Trump for example. I don't think that Trump is a Christian. He can claim to be one. We can have that argument. I don't want to, but let's say he changes his position and says, well, abortion is actually, it's a good thing. We should. Can we as Christians vote for a politician who's not a Christian, but has different views that we do? Do we just acknowledge that he's not a Christian? We can't accept a non-Christian to act like a Christian? Because I've always said that's like a line in the sand that I can't cross. I could never vote for someone who is pro-abortion.
I mean, I don't know. I think when it comes to voting in politics, it's always a lesser of two evils type thing.
But could you vote for someone that was pro-abortion?
I mean, they're both going to be. If the traditionally pro-life side becomes pro-choice, then that is going to be either way you vote. So then you have to look at other issues. No, obviously not. I mean, say in a primary or something, that would be a single line issue for me. Mm-hmm. Like that would be enough. But
and mine too. But I've always but am I expecting a non-Christian to act like a Christian? Is the preface of my question.
No, I don't think we can. I don't think so.
No,
John said it was both.
Yeah.
What?
You said have what did you say, right?
Oh yeah, you can still. You need to stand up for what you believe is true.
Right, but we shouldn't have expectations of pagans.
Yeah.
Having any morality, really. Any morality they have is just kind of like a bonus.
Take that bring that closer to home. It definitely, applies to all areas. Think about it at work. Think about it in your home. If you have family members, if you have children who aren't Christians, man, you can, sure, have high expectations on your kids. I do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can't fault them for not being sanctified. Sure, you can just, say you have adult kids. Smaller kids is a different issue. So, I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here, trying to come up with a good.
Small kids are all evil.
But, you have adult kids out that are living on their own. Sure, you can correct them. You can be upset with them if they're doing something destructive in their life, but you need to have the right expectations. Like, they're going to do things that are sinful, and they're probably not going to care about it.
Yeah.
Because they're not.
It comes down to a believer and unbeliever. It's really that black and white. You can't expect a pagan to act like a Christian because they're not indwelt with the Spirit of God.
I would say that everyone has an understanding of what's moral and what
they do, yeah. Romans 1's pretty clear about that.
You may not have the imperative to see it through, because that's not what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But you know what's right and wrong.
Right.
Really, I think you can still have those discussions, but I think it does change how you pray for those people. It should definitely, because then you're not praying for them to just stop doing what they're doing. You're praying for their salvation, because that's really ultimately what's going to change their life.
Yeah, that's the domino that starts the tumble.
And it changes those discussions too. You can talk about morality and what's right and wrong, but you should also share the gospel.
But I think it kind of ties back into your original question, is if you have that on your heart, that I am a follower of God, God doesn't like this, therefore I'm not going to do it, you no longer need the laws.
Yeah.
So the laws get written on your heart. I'm going to follow them because I truly want to honor God. You don't need the law that will tell you not to do this or to do this.
Right.
Because you do it automatically.
That's what Romans says. For Gentiles, they were a law unto themselves. If they did the things naturally that are in the law without having the law, they were a law unto themselves.
And I think this kind of brings this whole circumcision thing back. You no longer need, the Holy Spirit is now being freely given to believers. And those laws are written on your heart, what's right and wrong and how to honor me. And so we don't need the laws from the Old Testament, because they're being fulfilled. There's no need for the law if it's actually inside you. It doesn't have to be written down where you couldn't follow it anyway. because now you're going to do it naturally just for your desire and for the Spirit that lives in you.
I think there's some confusion on this topic, just talking with other people who have been like, okay, well, Christ didn't come to abolish the law. He came to fulfill it. Scripture's pretty clear about that. But also, we don't obey these old, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. I mean, there's a distinction drawn between moral law, ceremonial law, and civil law. The moral law has always been around the Ten Commandments, essentially. I mean, it's the other things that we don't follow anymore, the mixed garments, the dietary restrictions and stuff. But the moral laws, which are written on all of our hearts, we know the basic good and evil, right? But I know that's confusing, and it can be confusing. Someone was actually just asking me, we were talking about that yesterday with somebody, trying to understand that, how the law still applied and yet the law didn't apply.
The hard part is when morality becomes debatable, and it shouldn't necessarily be as debatable as what we make it, you know.
I mean, it's pretty clear.
It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the let's see. Well, what have I got? What do I got here in my notes here? I want to talk about this right here.
Oh.
How do we know we're saved? I like when Ian said, never use the word I. I did this, I did that. It should always start with Christ.
Oh yeah, the story that he talked about for trying to get into some nerd school.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah.
Nerd. What a nerd.
I think he answered the question correctly too, didn't he? I forget
he
the
did.
Story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was like, I didn't go to school. It's for other reasons. Totally not that. I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if we took a survey even in our own church, how many people would start that with Christ and not I.
Uh-huh. I think it might be.
We talked about, we've had conversations about church membership and what that could look like again and how to make it meaningful. And a lot of churches they'll have like a membership covenant, they call it. You have to answer some questions. You have to be circumcised.
So it's not just a true, false, pass, fail type thing?
Yeah, no.
Can't eat bacon.
But in there's a lot of churches, they'll conduct interviews. And that's a question they ask. Why are you saved?
Really?
How do you know you're saved?
Interviews?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you know you're saved? Because then you can correct a lot of those maybe misconceptions. And really see where people are at.
I remember having this discussion.
That's fascinating.
When you were the chairperson as an elder, and we were having those discussions, as elders, like, do we do this church membership? And initially I was like, I don't think so. But the more I've looked into this and thought about it, and, I think it's a good idea. And simply because of what you had said right there, we can set up like, this is what our church believes. Do you understand you're saved by grace? There are no works that can save you. Just a simple little, 3, 4, 5 checkoff list. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? This is.
Well, I think it's the reason, and I've come full circle on this too. I was totally against it at one time, having actual church membership, and now I've totally the opposite direction. I think it's really important because, and you're talking about the interviews. It actually lets us know who the people are and lets the people know, because we're a congregation, a group of people that come to worship together. And if we can't agree on the basics of what we're there for, can you actually worship God? Can you pray together if you don't even agree that these are the things we should be praying for?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we're not gonna agree on everything, but
there are fundamentals.
There are some fundamentals.
Because if you're sitting in the pew and just stewing over something that, Ian is saying, because you don't agree with, something that our church holds as a core tenet of our faith, maybe that should be something that we discuss before you become a member, as opposed to having a member there that didn't recognize that. And we don't do a church statement anymore, do we? What does Ian call that? It's
like a confession?
Yeah. Did we ever do that?
We have our basic beliefs on
the website
online. Yeah.
Well, I
But
think
the-
but it's not very in depth.
There's lots of churches that hold to an actual confession, like the London Baptist Confession or
The Westminster.
the Westminster.
Minster.
Man, and you look at the churches that hold to those, it probably helps. And man, conducting interviews, I'd never heard that before, but it probably helps keep
Yeah,
the teaching on a common line, throughout
it's more
the
common
church.
than I think than I realized.
Well,
Really?
and then you don't run into issues in Acts 15 where somebody comes up, in the church and saying, well, I know circumcision won't come up, but there'll be other tenets that will come up, like you have to wear pants, or you have to, grow your hair out. You
Yeah.
can't get haircuts.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea, and I think church membership should be about what, $2,500 a year,
Absolutely.
Paid to everyday theology.
and you get to golf for free.
Golf for free.
See, that's the
Oh
the
man.
reason that I don't like when people talk about
Memberships.
church membership.
Yeah, because it sounds
It's because
inclusive.
It sounds like we're going. I have now.
What do I
permission
get?
to go to the building, and do whatever. Just exactly like you were saying, like the country club, where I think the Greek word is closer tied to the word of congregation, a group of people. And although that's not exactly what the Greek word means either, I think it makes more sense to us today to think of it as I think it was the called out ones is basically what it means in the Greek. But you are joining a group of people or joining with a group of people to serve God. You're
Yeah.
part of the body of Christ in this particular location. And I think the people think of church, I'm going to church, I'm going to a building. Where if you thought, I'm going to go and be with my friends or people that
Yeah.
love me, it's a totally different way to think.
Yep.
It's saying I've thought about this too, because for a long time I thought it's not like the YMCA where it's like, what do I get out of this?
Right.
But you really, it's saying that you do get things actually,
And I would say
and you give things.
I would say the argument is to be made, what can I give instead of what can I get?
Well, it's a you're saying by saying I want to be a member, you're going, I am united to this body. I am in. I'm going to care for the needs of others. I'm going to give. I'm going to serve. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there. And then from like a leadership standpoint, it's saying, what you get is we're going to shepherd you. We're going to disciple you. We're going to care for your family. And I think that's important. And there's some accountability there.
Right.
Again, we read some books about it, and they pull people aside who have signed this membership covenant, who have been through these this process, and they're not at church for a while. They're getting a phone call going, "Hey, why aren't you here? Like you said you were going to be here."
Yeah,
And-
sorry.
It's been grounds for church discipline.
But it's
In
not,
the book I was reading, like you didn't come to church,
but it's not just
Discipline.
because
demerits. I don't know what
we need this many people here. It's when you're gone, it matters. It's like Ian being gone from this group. It changes the group.
Yeah.
And so, people being a part of this consistently and making
in a
it-
good way though.
I seek you guys out. I may not even talk to you on Sunday, but I seek you out just to make eye contact, just to, wave, because the dynamic does feel different. Like I know where Mike Newhart sits every single time.
Yeah.
And I always look over.
He always does this eyebrow thing at me.
Yeah.
I don't even talk to him on a Sunday most of the time, but then he does wiggles his eyebrows at me.
And
Yeah.
Now you're all
that's
over
all
the
you
place.
need.
I never know where you sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So,
bros.
and I know he's always sitting in the lobby and John's up there playing the piano. But yeah,
He's always sitting in the lobby for the whole time.
well, no,
I don't listen to the sermon. I'm
He's
just
there for the coffee. There it is.
The music sucks.
There it is.
I'll come in halfway through the sermon.
So yeah, without me being a member of Broadway, I feel like I'm a member, and I love our congregation. I love our pastor. It's I just love everything about that church.
But the reason you feel part of that congregation is, like you said, is the love, because the love we share between each other and the trust that we share with each other. We talk about some pretty in-depth stuff. I wouldn't talk with anybody else. But it's because we trust that we're going to do the right things, inside this group.
Yeah.
and that you can tell me exactly what you think, and I'm not offended by it. I have to go back and say, now I gotta go look and see how true that is, and we sharpen each other. But it's a love that we share. It's not, I don't know, a club membership.
Yeah, I think the view you hear a lot, people are like, well, I didn't really get any, like, who just look at church as something you do on Sunday mornings. Like, well, I didn't really get anything out of that today. I mean, that should never be the case, but also that's the wrong way of thinking, is what you get out of it.
Right.
I mean, it's like discipling. You are always being discipled, and you should always be discipling as well. So I think people who just show up on Sunday morning and kind of judge it based on, I didn't get anything out of it, or it was a good sermon today or whatever, and that's as far as it goes.
They're missing out.
They're missing out.
They're
That's
missing out.
not what being a member of the body.
And you know how we
is
all know they're
about.
missing out? Because we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
No, I agree.
We've
Yeah.
all been there. I mean, and what I have now is just, I just dreaded going to church. I found it is just like something that I had to do, much like the back to circumcision, as opposed to I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
There is a loving obedience that I have for the Lord and for the church at this point in time in my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And for those who don't have that, you don't know what you're missing out on.
Right.
It's wonderful.
Ditto.
Word.
Well, I think too that what made it exciting for me is to be able to get to do things for other people.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had multiple situations where I've had to force myself to do that. Yeah, I don't know if you even know it. I had to force myself to do it with you the very first time. We were standing out in the lobby. It was after church. I don't even know what we're doing. And I said, "Hey, I've been convicted here recently, and if you ever need anything around the house, help, ask me." And to my surprise, you said, "Actually, I do. I need some help pulling some pecs."
So I've been convicted of the same thing, that I always want to do everything on my own, and I keep everybody outside of my life whenever possible. And it's like, you can't really do that. That's not the way this is supposed to work.
Yeah. You got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're out of time. Newbie's got to go to work.
Some of us have to work today.
You're cutting this off?
No, we can keep going.
See what he did there?
Oh.
Yeah. Da-da-da.
Yeah.
Oh, cutting it off.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Where's my outro music?
I knew it's all about timing.
Yeah. Whatever.
There it is.
Thanks, everybody. This has been great.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for letting me be
Hey,
here.
be circumcised in your heart, everybody.
Hey, why don't you do a little, I don't know. What else you got going on today, John? Here, I'll set it up that way.
Oh, yeah. Today we've talked about this before, but we are filming 2 new podcasts. We are filming our stories podcast, and that'll be the first of many. We won't do that as frequently, but we're going to talk about, just have people give their testimony. And Mike Newhart's going to do that with me. And actually, for the first one, we thought since we're hosting it, we just interview each other, and more so him, because you guys don't really know him, and get to hear some of his story. And then this evening, we are recording our first songs podcast. We're going to talk about why we sing. We're going to talk about good theology and songs and why it's important, and kind of set up some future topics. So,
and you and Michael are going to do that more frequently.
Me and Michael, we don't have a schedule.
And you have a special guest today, right?
We need to have a schedule, otherwise it'll be like 2 months. Like, we need to do this again.
And
you have a special guest. Yes, it's you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I think Dave Carson might join us too.
Oh, cool.
are you and Newhart doing the stories every time together?
Yeah.
Okay, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited about these. Excited about hearing them.
I had talked to him about it, and I was just kind of dragging my feet. And like months later, he called me. He's like, "Hey, when are you doing this?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "I want to do it with you."
He's
Like,
a jerk. Kinda.
Okay.
He is.
He has a No, he's not.
He'll fit into the membership really well. We're all jerks.
All jerks.
You guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Ian should be back, unless...
No, he's on vacation next week.
Oh, Michael, we'll see you next week. You're a member of the podcast. Thanks.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you soon.
See ya.